You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, Sanbonani, Bonjour, Goeiemorgen, Dimashero Niabodzi. Welcome to the show. Happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. I hope you're good this morning. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us here on 702. We kickstart the show with the 702 open line on 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. If you're watching us on the 702 YouTube page, hello to you there on YouTube. You're welcome to post your comments as well on that YouTube page, and we will incorporate that on our 702 open line. What did you think of the National Dialogue? In fact, National Convention, I should say, on Friday and Saturday. It was a 2-day convention, about 1,000 people or so in attendance, 22 organizations were represented. They met and discussed challenges that are facing the country. Education, jobs, health, GBV, femicides, you name it. There were robust engagements. So the National Dialogue Initiative now enters its second phase this week. There'll be community level consultations and sectoral engagements taking place nationwide over the next couple of months. What I was able to pick up from that convention is that crime, issues like crime, corruption, illegal immigration as well, by the way, were some of the issues that top the agenda, issues that delegates want to be discussed during the dialogues. I mean, there were some tensions, especially on Friday. At some point, proceedings were suspended. Some people were protesting. Some people spoke openly and frankly about our challenges, even going as far as pointing fingers to the politicians. And I don't think that's a sign that this national dialogue won't work. In fact, I think for a process like this that is democratic, where we're looking for robust and honest reflections, a dialogue like this with a plurality of voices, that's what we should actually expect, except the violence, of course. No, those who thought that politicians will control this national dialogue process and predetermine its outcomes probably now realize that that would be difficult for any politician to do. The people there were not sugarcoating issues. They were not coddling our leaders. They were literally being honest. What were your reflections of the dialogue? 011-883-0702. The president spoke, and honestly, I was cringing during the time he said this at the National Convention.
We also need to ask ourselves, why do so many people live in abject poverty and so few live lives of opulence? Why, after decades of democracy, are the prospects of a white child so much better than those of a black child? We need to ask ourselves that. We also need to ask ourselves, why do women get paid less than men for the same work? That's what we need to ask ourselves. Now, we also must go deeper and ask ourselves, why, when we have a Bill of Rights in our Constitution, are the LGBTQI plus people still discriminated against? Why are they still stigmatized and harassed? Why do clinics run out of medicine? Are questions that we must ask ourselves.
Yeah, I think they get the gist. I don't know, I just feel like the president should have probably rephrased this entire monologue. It just sounds weird when you are the president and you're asking those questions, and you've been deputy president and the party that you're part of has been running things over the last, for 30 years or so, and you're asking these questions as if you've just arrived in this country and you just don't know how we got here. In fact, this reminds me of a question that I asked Tokyo Sexwale. Remember when I had Tokyo Sexwale on this show? I said to him, is there space for accountability at this dialogue? Or do we only want to talk about the solutions? These are the challenges, these are the solutions. Or is there space for accountability? Or are we all going to just pretend like we don't know how we got here? Because I think it's important to reflect on how we got here so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. And Tokyo Sexwale actually said, we must be careful of arsonists who come back to the scene as part of the fire brigade to help take out the very same fire that they started. Remember what he said when he was here?
Like I said, if the arsonists want to return as fire brigade leaders which is what we must be careful about this
Isn't that the case with the dialogue?
Yes.
Arsonists
Absolutely.
are returning to the crime scene as the fire brigade team.
Yes. From the tattered clothes of the one who started the fire last night, you're returning dressed up in the bright and flashy uniforms of fire brigade people. So we've got to be very careful that this dialogue must not be led by people who, in the first place, are responsible for the causality of the problems. So that's what I'm saying to Brigadier Bam. Otherwise, this thing will fall flat on its face. There's a good chance that the dialogue may produce something, but there's also another chance that things can go worse.
What could it produce? See, arsonists. And I really think that for this dialogue to be successful, I don't think we can just look at the challenges and just move forward with the solutions. I think we need to reflect on how we got here so that we don't make the same mistakes. We have to reflect on how did we get here? Who are the people who got us in this position we find ourselves? You can't have arsonists, people who started the fire, are now coming back to the scene to take out the very same fire they started as if they knew nothing about how that fire started. No, let's talk about how we got here and how do we avoid getting into the same pit again. How disappointing was this sporting weekend? The Springboks lost, the Proteas lost, the UFC middleweight champ, what did I call him on Friday? Derkas, but his name is Dricus du Plessis. He also lost. He couldn't defend the championship. It wasn't a good weekend for us. Did you watch the rugby? That was probably the most painful loss than any other this weekend. You know, someone said if this was soccer, hashtag #RasiMustGo would be trending, which is quite fascinating. Hey? But yeah, I just thought the Springboks loss was more painful to me. Were you disappointed by that? Did you watch the game? What do you think happened there? By the way, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is back in the US today. He'll be meeting with President Trump following Trump's meeting with Putin on Friday. Trump has been talking about how powerful Russia is compared to Ukraine, which somehow seems to suggest that he wants Ukraine to compromise more than Russia should compromise because the two are not equal. And I wonder what you think about that. And what will compromise on the part of Ukraine look like? Give away some pieces of land to Russia? I wonder. 011-883-0702. Let's kick off the 702 open line. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
Morning, Clement. Regarding the National Convention in preparation for the National Dialogue later on, I think it's a good thing that it happened. You see, in this country, there are several stop-starts. Whether you talk about licensing, people are giving extensions on end, and in the end, we like waking up in the last minute as South Africans. So this time, it was a very clear sign that if you wait, when you dilly-dally, the train will leave without you. And also the second point is that people like Mbeki and others who withdrew from the convention have to know that they are no longer the it thing in this country. They are former leaders, and the life in this country will go on without them. This country is bigger than all of us. This is Jack from Amaskara.
Good morning, Mr. Clement. About the first day of National Convention about this issue of dialogue. You know, I laugh, Mr. Clement, when the president say we must ask ourselves why there are no medication at the clinic. We must ask why the GP. I mean, Clement, come on. This is the head of state. The people who are in government for 31 years, who know the challenges that we are facing. And then now is telling us that we must ask the government again why there are no medication in the clinic. I mean, really, Clement, are we taken for the joke? Because he is telling us now we must ask the thing that they know that they couldn't solve it. No, Mr. Clement, come on.
Yeah, it's really shocking. On the YouTube page, Nsapogazi says, "Good morning, Clem. It was a chaotic start to the national dialogue, but the questions the president asked shows lack of accountability, especially from people who have been in government for a while." And then another one on the YouTube page, Innocent, says, "Good morning, Clement. Does Ramaphosa even know that he is the president of the country?" Yeah, it's just weird, some of the stuff that was saying there. Fatima says, "Cyril Ramaphosa spoke like a civilian, not like a president, former deputy president, part of the founding of the constitution. More of his shocked tendency. That is infuriating." I think it is infuriating. Because you are the president. You know why we're here. You were deputy president. You are part of the organization that's been running things for over 30 years. So to ask those questions as if you're some innocent bystander just arrived here giving us their independent, objective assessment of where this country finds itself, I'm sorry, I find that incredibly weird. 20 minutes after 9.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
Nare, you are calling us from Blegori. What are your thoughts? Good morning.
Oh, yeah, morning, Clement, and
Sure.
your listeners. Yes, Clement, when I looked at Putin and Trump, I just saw two gangsters who want things to go their own way. I think Trump is wrong. I mean, he wanted Ukraine to sign some mineral rights, and because, that guy refused. And the whole idea that Ukraine was never part of Russia. There were two kingdoms, the Kiev and the Russian kingdom. It was never one thing. So what happened was when the borders as well were drawn, part of the Ukraine, they lost some of its territory to Poland and Lithuania and I think Belarus. Because even when you look at Zelensky speaks Russian himself. The whole claim that those, regions like, Donetsk and others, that they are part of Russian people. So it's like people of that guy in Lesotho claiming part of Free State, that he wants to be part of Lesotho. The same thing, because when the borders were made, the people of the same tribe were divided. You understand? Others, they end up on the other side.
Yeah.
So, so what I say with Zelensky, he doesn't have a choice, because I think even the European Union, they're scared of Trump. It seems like everyone is scared of Trump. The way I see it, I don't see him. You have to give up those territories, but it is not. On justice. But I think the way things they are, they're just throwing him under the bus. But Trump, I think, is an evil man.
Well, let's see how things are going to transpire today. Because Ukraine, the president is visiting the U.S. today. He's going to be meeting with Trump. He's coming with the NATO secretary. He's coming with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer as well. So let's see what's going to happen. But we've done also, like, for some of you that may be listening and you're trying to understand like how this war, how did we get here with Ukraine and Russia? We once did, in fact, probably we did it twice, where we did like an hour conversation trying to understand the genesis of this war. And we took it back to many years ago when the Minsk agreements were signed and who's violating what, and all the security concerns that Russia has raised even like decades and decades ago. So if you just Google Russia-Ukraine conflict, Clement Manyathela Show, I think it should come up. It's a conversation that we had probably in 2022, a couple of months after Russia decided to invade Ukraine. But I think it's going to be fascinating if Trump is going to try to get Ukraine to give up some of that land. I wouldn't be surprised that Trump, in fact, CNN was reporting last week that their sources were saying that Trump wants Ukraine to give up some land to Russia. Precisely what Donald Trump has been pushing for. He invaded and went and literally just forcefully taken those areas. I mean, look at the Donetsk region. He's gone and taken over those places, and now, what, Trump wants that to be legitimized? It's going to be fascinating, because I wonder what precedent this sets. And you know, when you go to Europe, especially countries that are near Russia, they are so scared. I had the opportunity, was it 3 months ago? I had the opportunity to go to Finland. I was in Helsinki in Finland. And one of the things I realized, and I had an opportunity to actually speak to their foreign affairs minister when I was there. And one of the things I realized is that Finland spends so much money on their security. They invest so much on security because they're scared that Vladimir Putin may wake up one day and decide, I want a piece of Finland. Let's get a piece of Finland. That's how bad it is. So they invest so much in security because they don't know what President Putin will wake up and decide one day. So I wonder what precedent this would set if Donald Trump is really going to try and push Ukraine to give up pieces of its land, especially the areas that Russia wants to claim. I wonder what precedent that's going to set. Let's go to more of your WhatsApp voice notes.
Morning, Clement. Oh, I get so angry when Ramaphosa speaks like this. The reason is that they stole all the money that could have fixed this country. Maybe you must ask his son, why is he so rich and other black kids are so poor? I'm so angry. It's Veronica from Sprayview. Bye-bye.
Top of the morning, Manyathela and 702 lenders. I reckon you're reading too much into the president's rhetoric. It's a scene setter to the effect that no question is out of bounds. As for legacy organizations, the show will continue even without them. This is not really about organized leadership. It's about us, citizens of this country, redefining and re-championing our cause. Thanks for a great show. Temple in Boksburg.
Yeah, I hear that, Tsepo, and maybe that's where the president was coming from, that no question is off bounds. But I really wish that there was a more franker, more genuine setting up of what is to happen over the next couple of months, right? As opposed to just limit it to, why do we still have this? Why do we still have this? How about there's also a genuine acknowledgement of, we're here asking the very same questions he says we must ask because of certain things that happened during the time when the organization he's the president of was running things in this country. I think it's important to look at that. Otherwise, there's no accountability. And where there's no accountability, how can we guarantee, or how can we, at the very least, try and assure ourselves that we've learned from the mistakes of the past? If there's no space for accountability at this national dialogue, and we don't care about how we got here, we care just about the solutions, how does that say to us we are not going to make the same mistakes again? And I just wish, even during that president's introductory remarks, he was genuine about why we're here. And I wish he had prompted the people at the convention that going forward over the next couple of months as we meet and we discuss, let's also reflect on how we got here.
Hi, Clement. you're right about the monologue, the president's monologue. It's the equivalent of you being the head of a household and asking, why are my kids' school fees not paid for? Why are we late on rent? Why are my kids misbehaving when you know that you are an absent father? Really, Clement, I don't know where we're going as a country.
Good morning, Clement. I'm listening to the clip that you're playing of the president. Who is he addressing these questions to? If I'm correct, these questions are supposed to be addressed to him, and he's supposed to account or answer those questions. So weird for him to say such things. Okay, who's supposed to answer those questions then? Wow. Joe from Naturena.
Good morning, Clement. About the opening of the national dialogue, our president does act like he's not responsible as the head of state. He should be calling all those ministers to order, and the ministers must call the people below them to order, and they must actually tell the people below them to actually do the jobs. There's a whole hierarchy, and he's acting like he's not part of it unless it suits him. The thing that I found weird was right at the end. He says, we must practice Ubuntu. Not one single person in that room clapped. Granny T. Boxburg.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
35 minutes before 10 o'clock. Your calls on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Beverly on the WhatsApp line says, Clement, on Putin and Trump, I think one of Putin's conditions for stopping the war is that Ukraine must surrender so that he can appear as a hero to the Russians. That's what Beverly says. Another one says, hi, Clement, there are a lot of issues that we're facing that the president only highlighted instead of concentrating on what he only mentioned. It isn't for us to now bring to the dialogue the rest of those that were not part of his opening address. That's a question that Simon is asking. Yes, Simon, I think, of course, the president is not going to address every single thing that needs to be discussed at the national dialogues. His is only to also suggest these are the questions we need to ask ourselves. But I think the problem with a dialogue that doesn't focus on also accountability is that we run the risk of, yes, finding the solutions, and then we're going to repeat the same mistakes one day. I was very happy to see that there were people who were very robust in their assessment of where we find ourselves in this country. And they were even pointing fingers at the politicians. And that's good, because actually that shows you that this is a democratic, robust process with no predetermined outcomes. People are coming out there to participate, and nobody's saying to them, no, don't point fingers at this, don't do that, which I was glad to see. I'm just saying that I wish that there was more intentionality around ensuring the space for accountability at these national dialogues, even from the planning, the preparatory task team. They should also be intentional about allowing people, in fact, getting people to reflect on why we're here and how do we avoid making the same mistakes again. And I just think that's missing in this process. Les, you're calling us from Pretoria. What do you think?
Yeah, Clement, I hear you and the callers in terms of the frustration about the opening remarks. But I looked at it differently. And I said that, look, we know as South Africans that there are people in the ANC that have been fingered in the Zondo report. If I can use that without speculation. They've been fingered in the Zondo report. Of that top 7 of the ANC, we know how many of those people are sitting there. And we cannot sit here and pretend that that top 7 is united on its own. So they themselves, as the ANC, they said they're going to cleanse themselves. So they failed to cleanse themselves. For me, I think what the president is saying is that people, we are talking within the ANC there are those that are not corrupt are telling those that are corrupt to say, please stop the corruption because you are destroying the name of the government and the work that you're derailing the work that the government should do. So he's putting it out there to us to say, people, ask yourself, if you've had this government for 30 years and things are where they are, what are you saying? How are you holding us accountable? And he talks to what you are saying. How did we get here? How do we prevent that we get here? We need to have a strong civil society where when the laws are being put in place, we have to be part of that. And we need to punish the government at the polls by not voting for the ANC because it has failed to cleanse itself. And as a result, it has failed to deliver on the promises that they have made. So for me, that question was loaded. It was not just a question of saying, okay, why don't medication? Why are there no medications in the clinics? You know, so he was saying that we have failed as the ANC to talk amongst each other. We are not agreeing. We are infiltrated with thieves. Top 7 is there. Is what we're talking about. The deputy president has got wealth that he cannot explain. That he cannot explain. So there you go. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Les, in Pretoria. I just wish that the president was actually explaining it the way you are explaining it. That would have been so powerful. Imagine a president getting in front of the 1,000 strong crowd and saying, we have contributed towards the destruction of this country as the African National Congress. We've got people that were deployed that used their positions for their political expediency and to enrich themselves. They stole taxpayers' money. They found opportunities to steal together with their friends and families. And we must ask questions about whether or not that's an organization that you trust. And is it an organization that's also realized its mistakes and what has it done about that? Those are internal reflections we should have. I would have been glad if the president was more clearer like that, Les, as opposed to just ask those questions as if he is some passive, stakeholder. Tapelo, you're in Pretoria. Good morning.
Clement, good morning. How are you?
Sure, man. Go ahead.
Good. One or two things that I want to highlight here. Regarding this national convention, you can see that this is another talk shop, and it's not going to take us anywhere because the fact of the matter is the president was highlighting the problems already when he was asking, why are we not having medication? Why are we not having this? Those are the problems that they already know. And the problem is the leadership. However, my point is this one. You remember that the president, when he took office many years ago, one of the things that he said was that I would rather be remembered as the weak president than a president that is going to bring division to the ANC. So his main focus, it is not about the country moving forward. I think for me, as an individual, I think his main focus is the unity that he wants to be bringing into the ANC. He cares less about the progression of the country. He's more interested in the ANC. And that is why for many years, he will stand and be surprised and saying, I'm surprised this is what is happening. Because his focus is not the country. His focus is the ANC. That's why he's for all the time surprised. He's coming into, how many people? Over 1,000. He's repeating everything that everybody knows. So that's your president for you.
All right, Tapelo in Pretoria, thank you for your thoughts.
Morning, Clement. Morning to the listeners. The reason why Trump is pushing Ukraine to give up some of the land to Russia is to legitimize Israel occupying Gaza in the West Bank. So if Ukraine gives up its land to Russia, then obviously Israel has a foot to stand on occupying and annexing of the West Bank and Gaza. So there's a reason behind all of this. And that's how life goes, eh?
Good morning, Clement. I think sometimes you have to make sacrifices. That's what Zelensky must do. I mean, like the little bit of Ukraine that he's supposed to give up is not a lot compared to, look at what Morana Mushasha did with Lesotho. He gave up a big chunk of Lesotho to the Boers and then kept a little bit of what remains to be Lesotho today. And then at least the people of Lesotho still have what they call their homeland. So I really think that, sacrifices has to be done, and then you can't win it all, especially when you're fighting somebody who's so superior militarily like, Putin and Russia. So I think he must concede and give up territory, and then otherwise he's going to lose everything. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, guys. Do we understand the precedent that this would set? Okay, who is the most... Okay, let's be practical about it. Which country is the most powerful other than South Africa in SADC? Like militarily, or maybe... Like, which country? I just want to try and be practical. So let's say, for argument's sake, in fact, let's use ourselves. Let's say we are the strongest country militarily on the SADC region, right? And we decide, let's invade Botswana, actually. Then we invade Botswana because we worried about Botswana joining some military alliance organization that may pose some security threats to us. Put that on the side. But we invade Botswana. And then we say to... Who's the new president of Botswana now? Maboko. Du Maboko. And then we say to President Du Maboko. So presidents, there are people who go there to negotiate a peace deal that South Africa must get out of Botswana. And now President Du Maboko must be willing to give up parts of Botswana to us just so that we can end the war. Botswana is a sovereign country, and so are we. We have already violated international law by invading Botswana. And then now we've created a situation, and in fact, this was probably Vladimir Putin's long-time plan. He probably wanted to, let's get in there, let's destabilize, let's kill people, let people leave Ukraine and be, immigrants somewhere else, be taken by other European countries. Let's destabilize, and then let's force Ukraine to the negotiating table so that they can give up the land. Because that has, in fact, been what Vladimir Putin has been wanting. So imagine, now Botswana must give up its land to South Africa just so that, for peace sake, man, otherwise we'll lose the whole of Botswana if we don't give South Africa this piece of Botswana land. That doesn't make sense to me. Then Israel must take the entire West Bank. In fact, take Gaza while at it. Isn't that the argument then that other people will make? Because clearly we have no respect for sovereignty. Anybody can just go because they're a powerful country and annex some land somewhere because they are mighty militarily. That's why Donald Trump keeps saying, Russia is more powerful than Ukraine. What are you suggesting? So what? So what if there are countries that are more powerful? Must they now oppress other countries? Which is basically what we have seen with some of these powerful countries. But my goodness, there's a person here who's invaded another country. And now, for him to agree to a ceasefire, he wants that same sovereign country to give up pieces of its land. That doesn't make sense to me. Let's go to more of your WhatsApps.
Clement, good morning. Yeah, no, the big boys are now working together. Trump and Putin. They are looking at Zelensky, Ukraine, a smaller party, and they are laughing. They're just saying, we think power. So Trump is helping Putin acquire much of the land from Ukraine. And there is no deal for Putin if that deal excludes that acquisition of land from Ukraine. Watch the space. And Trump is well aware of that, but he doesn't want any confrontation with Putin going forward. Kenny speaking.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
It's 10 minutes now before 10 o'clock. Let's continue with your calls and your WhatsApps. Lebo, let's start with you in Johannesburg. Good morning. Hi, Lebo.
Hi, good morning.
Sure.
Hi, Clement. While I understand the sentiment of not trusting or skepticism around what can be achieved with the national dialogue, I don't agree with those that are already saying it's going to be a talk shop. And the reason why I don't agree with those is the fact that the setup is such that this past weekend was a convention. The dialogue process itself is basically going to go into every ward, into every community. And we have a tendency in South Africa, particularly middle class, that we ourselves don't meet except if we are doing our own private security and other things. And normally in townships and other places where people really meet and they engage. The structures that exist, even right now, of government, as the citizen, we need to ask ourselves whether or not we have been as engaged, notwithstanding the problems and the stonewalling and the lack of accountability. So if a dialogue is a talk shop, it's going to be because there are those who have decided that the answer is going to come like manna from heaven, and they are not going to participate. And I really want to commend those people who took a weekend and went out, and there was contestation, and they raised their voices, but that is democracy. Saying something is going to fail, for me, when you don't participate, is similar to saying, I don't like what this government is doing, therefore I'm not going to vote.
Yeah.
Because, in fact, you are voting. You are saying whoever goes and votes, even if they vote for a party that is completely not aligned to my views, they will be fine because I choose not to participate.
Yeah, I'll take
my
whatever.
encouragement is that this is a moment for all of us to get engaged, to organize, to sit in our churches, in our stock sales, and discuss the issues of this country, because this country does not belong to the president. This country does not belong to one party. This country doesn't even belong to politicians. This is our country, and this is our time. As much as we can point fingers at government, we need to point fingers at ourselves and how, as citizens, we are critically engaged in what is happening in our own country.
Yeah, Lebo couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much for that. Active citizenry. A lot of us, we criticize from our couches. We don't want to participate even in the structures that already exist in our constitutional democracy. For us to express our views, to us to express what we are happy, what we're unhappy about. I mean, when there are bills, for instance, and there are public consultations, how many of us go and participate? So it's easy for us to just speak amongst ourselves or call on a radio station and complain about this bill that is almost close to becoming law or close to being passed in parliament. But are we actually doing the work of going out and saying, I'm going to express my view? I'm going to go to this public consultation process and I'm going to say what I think, because that may, in fact, somehow contribute towards a bigger body of voices that are against or are in support of that particular bill. Yvonne, you're calling us from Pretoria. What do you want to say about Ukraine and Trump? Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. I think hello, Clement.
Yeah, we can hear you, Yvonne. Go ahead.
I was listening to you comparing Botswana and invasion and all that, I thought of one thing, that this actually was a proxy war of America trying to invade Russia at the doorstep of Russia and Donbass region, where they could put nuclear weapons and send them to Russia and wipe them out without warning. So we are forgetting that very important point, that who is conceding. The person that is conceding actually here, it could be Donald Trump, saying this is not going anywhere, and I have actually lost. I tried to use Zelensky. Now Zelensky has to answer to his own people. Why did you allow yourself to be used as a puppet against Russia being used by America. So that's another element that I think is very important here that we need to look at. Because Putin did not just wake up in the morning and said, I'm just going to send weapons towards Ukraine. It is because they were provoked. They said, do not go onto my doorstep. You agreed as NATO. That then they turned around and said, but we agreed with USSR. It's no longer there.
It's no longer
there. They use a technicality. They use a technicality.
Yeah.
It's very important. That point, we must never turn a blind eye to it. It's actually America that is considered.
But then, Yvonne, what if someone else says, but Ukraine has not joined NATO? It was only... The conversation, is that enough then for Russia to just go and invade?
They were interested. If Russia did not do anything about it, they would have joined. Why was he at the NATO summit a month ago? Why was Zelensky at the NATO summit? They say he was an observer. Observing what? He's not a member. Why are you there?
Yeah, but they had also rejected, in fact, the application at some point when they applied. Also, it wasn't going to just be so immediate. My question has always been, do you then go and punish a country for something that the country is still considering? Or do you actually say, oh, now it's official, you've just been accepted into NATO, then I'm actually going to come in and do this? I don't know. Or maybe this was a preemptive strike. Russia wanted to say to Ukraine, don't you dare even go any further with your consideration. Well, I don't know. Yvonne, thank you so much for your thoughts. I think, what we should probably do, I'll go and tweet, because I see a few of you are asking about this history, because we went down history to understand this war in Ukraine. And I'll find that podcast, and then I'm going to tweet it. I'm going to put it on Twitter. But it's very easy. Like if you just say Ukraine, Russia war, the Clement Manyathela Show, I think the podcast should come up. But we went down history to help you understand why we're here. Because Russia consistently said during the invasion that NATO took advantage of the weaknesses of Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union to enlarge to the east. And that was in violation of the promises that Moscow claims were made by Western leaders, as Yvonne says, right? So were these promises actually made, right? What are the formal agreements that were signed between NATO countries and the USSR before its breakup in 1991? And what do they tell us about this war in Ukraine? So we even looked at the security threats that Russia believes necessitated this invasion back in 2022. We looked at the Minsk agreements as well, involving the Donbas region in Ukraine, what they are, and what was really violated there. So it was such a fascinating, historical, insightful conversation that I think you must go and check out. It's 2 minutes now before 10 o'clock.